Hello again. Welcome to the first tutorial concerning AFPO's core membership register software, which also doubles as a lead manager, which is not an obvious concept, but which we will come to in this and the following tutorials. This tutorial is fronted up, however, by two information podeos that are for the benefit of members, prospective members, associate members and full members, helping them to understand how and where the member register, along with its lead management functions, fits into their life as an AFPO member. In this tutorial, we are going to focus on providing a fairly short overview of the main four functions of the platform, and then focusing down upon its ability to be a factory in the processing of leads. And leads is another curiosity when we are dealing with a members register. But let's remind ourselves of how this works. Like every association, we have a register of members, data which is built and maintained about the member. But in a situation where members expect to hear from the association upon matters that they are interested in, and therefore for that to happen, these records have to be relatively full, letting us know that a member, for example, is in business in France but doesn't own property in France, or owns property in Spain but is not in any form of business, or owns property in Spain which is rented out because they live in England. So we are having to deal with lots of different members and have to have the ability to provide the appropriate messages to those members according to their circumstances. There is no point in us telling people who live in France about what's going on in Spain, and there's no point in us telling people who don't rent their property out about issues surrounding the rental of touristic properties. And so, the first concept embraced by this platform, AFPO Members Register crossed with lead management platform, is that anybody who registers with AFPO is automatically an associate member, and people can be registered by another member, by the AFPO registry team, or by the individual themselves. And so the opening functionality of the register might be that a will writer adds all of his clients as data onto the register, simply in order to be able to better manage them for himself, or that a touristic letting member adds all of his paying guests who have rented through Airbnb his apartment in Spain, and he might do that in order to be able to involve himself in the exchange scheme. Or an individual who comes across AFPO on YouTube decides to register his or herself. So let us take a look at those two processes. An individual sees a AFPO video, is invited to join AFPO, and registers him or herself. That process most usually is for them to fill in an online form or send an email requesting to be registered. Registration will be done for them, and they will be sent the URL to go to, which is always the same, and a login name and a password. In a moment, we're going to look at the software and at this process of either ourselves adding a record to the members register, or us putting a member in a position to add themselves and others. Before we look at that, we will cover a couple of things. Firstly, the history of the software. This software was produced as a direct response to the introduction of what is known as Brussels 4, which is a pan-European wills system. It's not the purpose of this tutorial to explain the background, other than to say that we are an association of foreigners who own property in one country or another that is not their homeland, and a large body of the members are English-speaking people who own property in the EU countries. And clearly, for those people, wills are of relevance, and this is a matter that affects every single owner of a property because of the inheritance consequences of that property. And in 2012, the EU introduced a system that would affect the whole of Europe. We knew that when this law became effective in 2015, that we would be needing to communicate information to very large numbers of people through experts. And who would be those experts? And so against that background, this Members Register software was developed capable of being effectively a factory where work could be done by a team of people on the database simultaneously, each adopting different roles, so that we could move through the rollout of Brussels 4 at some pace. And so that is how the software came about. And another aspect of the software is that it is capable of doing many different tasks by necessity, because members of the Association of Foreign Property Owners have many different situations. One of the first technical things that you should be aware of is that it is a repository of the details of members and therefore a members register. But those members will need services and information and advice. And those processes turn the members into leads. And so in addition to being a member management system, it is also a lead management system where the members are leads. They might be leads for the association to sell box set inforials to, which start out as information podeos and then become tutorial podeos. And the information is free to associate members, but the tutorials either have to be purchased as a box set by an associate member as a one-off payment, or are free to full members who pay £15 per month or £150 per year. And so there is a register of members where those members are also leads. And the leads have different characteristics for different situations. And the very first challenge that the software had to meet related to Brussels 4 information, followed up by will services that were required in 2015 and 2016. Your first introduction on screen to the software will be in a wills environment. However, a unique feature of the system is its ability to operate across multiple websites. And so a member, an associate member or a full member who operated a touristic letting business could have a copy of the AFPO software in order to be able to add to it and manage and look after details of their tenants. This gives that member the opportunity of participating in the association's customer exchange program for touristic letting members. AFPO attracts a great many touristic letting members because a great many foreign owners of property in France, Spain, etc. own that property in order to be able to let it out. By having a copy of the AFPO software to use in relationship to their business, they can add the details of all of their customers, or as many as wish to participate, to that database, and then organise an exchange of customers with other AFPO members. Customers added to a members database in this situation have nothing to do with AFPO. They're not associated members, they're not regarded as being anything to AFPO because they probably don't own property abroad. They could be identified as such and turned into members, but that is not the point of this aspect of the lead management capability of the software. And so a AFPO member in Barcelona who has 2 or 3 apartments that they rent out comes to meet through AFPO. A AFPO member in Sevilla who has 2 or 3 apartments to rent out. Both are accumulating around 100 to 200 customers per year, and they can use their software to periodically exchange customer details so that the Barcelona member can invite, perhaps on some special deal, customers who have visited the Sevilla's members' apartments to come to Barcelona and vice versa. All that they have to be in order to engage in that program is a full member of the association, and without having to pay any of the Airbnb or other fees to attract clients, simply by undergoing an exchange of data within AFPO software, they can add significantly to their business. And so that is an AFPO service generated out of the AFPO software, which I'm explaining to you now because it helps account for the complexity and multi three-tiered software that we have to help you understand. And similarly, a will writer who is an AFPO member who accumulates will clients that he can or she can rarely return to, people tend to only write a will once every 5 or 10 years, could make use of the AFPO software, having their own copy of the software installed, linked to their own website, and every now and again they could exchange their will clients in Andalusia or in the Canary Islands with a mortgage broker in Andalusia or the Canary Islands entirely through the AFPO software they can receive simply because they're an AFPO member. And in depth, there are substantial advantages in using the AFPO software for this exchange program than any other, even if there was another that could meet their needs. What we have now done is open your mind to the two main functions of the AFPO Member Register and Lead Management platform. In the next tutorial, we're going to run through its structure and the people involved and the rules of play. In particular, we're going to look at what is called the lead cycle. When AFPO is operating its software as a members register, the lead cycle is of a potential member who then becomes an associate member and then steps up to being a full member and steps back to being an associate member, and who has certain areas of activity that they are interested in, certain aspects of law and practice that they're interested in, and the software deals with that. When we are talking about a member who touristically lets property, then the same cycle applies to the copy of the software that they are using for that purpose, for their business only, and the cycle is of prospects who might rent their property or who might not, which might include tenants of another member that have been exchanged using the exchange program, or might simply be a record of people that have stayed with that member in their touristic apartment or whatever, with details of their family size, the amount of time they stay, whether the likelihood of them returning to a future holiday, and so on. So that is the lead cycle. We're also going to look at the lead record status. Leads evolve in a system that copes with the various purposes for which this software can be used. So leads become created with sufficient information. They then become ready. If they are of that type that can be exchanged, which is effectively a sale, but fair exchange is no robbery, comes in. So they become for sale. Somebody says they're going to buy them, but hasn't paid for them, they're pending. Somebody says they're going to buy for them and pays for them, they're then sold. But that really usually often means, though not always, usually often means that I've taken 10 of your past tenants and you've given you 10 of mine. There are issues about possible duplication. There are issues about whether a lead is questionable or as good as it should be, whether it's unusable, whether the person's now died, and so on, which are all aspects of the lead record status. And then there are users of the system. Often, if we're talking about one single member who is an owner, then he is everything. He is the doorman and the chairman and bottle washer. But if we're talking about a business, a lawyer who's periodically prepared to swap client details with an accountant, then there may well be different people within his organisation or her organisation involved in this, doing different tasks. So there is an author who is the person who creates the record in the first place. There is an editor who perfects it, checks it, tidies it up, if you like, a line manager. And then there is a publisher who is the person that says, yes, as far as I'm concerned, that customer's details could be exchanged with an accountant for customer details of somebody we don't know that they have on their book. And then there is a special, which is a kind of master of all trades. So there are different types of users that make it possible for this software to handle substantial capacity, or just as easily to be totally operated by a single business person. And there's some terminology that becomes involved in the use of the software. So that is what we will be dealing with in the next tutorial. Until then, good day to you.